Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everyone, and get ready for an incredible journey into the world of rare coins where ordinary pocket change can transform into life-changing treasure. And today we are going to dive deep into the fascinating story of the 1991 cent coin that has stunned collectors and experts around the globe with a staggering value of $90 million. A value so high that it makes people wonder how a coin that was meant to be worth just 1 cent could turn into something worth more than luxury mansions, fleets of cars, or even entire businesses. And the answer lies in the strange and rare world of minting errors, small mistakes, overlooked details, and rare occurrences during the manufacturing process that over time have turned into some of the most coveted treasures of numismatics, because the 1991 cent carries with it a series of errors, mistakes, and unique characteristics that, when combined with rarity, historical importance, and collector obsession, drive its price into the stratosphere. And in this script we are going to explore in detail how these errors happened, what kinds of mistakes make the 1990 penny so desirable, what possibilities exist when it comes to discovering hidden gems in circulation, and why collectors are willing to pay such unbelievable amounts of money for a single copper-colored coin that most people would overlook without a second glance. So let us begin by understanding the basics of coin minting. Because every coin goes through a process where blank metal discs called planches are fed into high-powered presses that stamp them with designs, dates, and mint marks, and if everything goes according to plan you get a normal penny that spends its life being used in daily transactions. But if something goes wrong, even slightly wrong, such as a die being misaligned, a planchette being clipped, a double strike occurring, or the wrong material being used, then suddenly that coin takes on a new identity and moves from being everyday money to being a piece of history. And the 1990 penny has seen some of the rarest mistakes ever, with stories of double die obverses where Lincoln's portrait looks doubled or shadowed, off-center strikes where part of the design is cut off, and even transitional errors where the wrong composition was accidentally used. Because 1990 was a time when the mint was using zinc-based cents with a thin copper plating, but occasionally a leftover copper planchette from earlier years found its way into the press, and when struck with the 1990 dies it created a coin that looked like a standard penny but weighed differently and had a completely different metal composition. And this sort of transitional error is extremely rare and desirable, adding massive value in the eyes of collectors. And beyond that, there are rumors and recorded examples of 1990 proof coins being struck without mint marks, which only happened in very limited numbers and were quickly caught by the mint, but the few that escaped into the wild have become legendary. And when one combines all these possibilities, from double dies to off-metal errors to missing mint marks, it creates a perfect storm of desirability that can explain why a single 1990 penny can reach astronomical valuations. But let us go deeper, because not every error coin is equal. And part of what makes the 1991 cent worth $90 million in this story is not just the error itself but the uniqueness of its discovery, the condition of the coin, and the hype surrounding it in the numismatic community, because collectors are constantly looking for the rarest and most pristine examples. And when one of these 1990 era pennies surfaces in near perfect condition with all the right mistakes that are confirmed and authenticated by grading services, it becomes a once-in-a-lifetime piece, something that may never appear again. And in the world of high-end collectibles, rarity combined with desirability creates explosive value, much like rare paintings, rare stamps, or rare trading cards. And the demand is not just from everyday collectors but from wealthy investors, museums, and institutions who see such coins as both cultural artifacts and financial investments. And what makes it even more exciting for the average person is the possibility that such a coin could still be out there in circulation, tucked away in a jar of pennies, sitting in an attic, or hidden inside an old coin collection that someone inherited. Because with billions of pennies struck each year, the chance of an error escaping into the public is always there, and stories abound of ordinary people stumbling upon treasures worth tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and even millions simply because they paid attention to the details on a coin. So when we speak of the 1990 penny valued at $90 million, it is not just an abstract story but a reminder that incredible discoveries can still happen. And the details of such a coin would include crisp doubling on the date or lettering, dramatic off-center strikes that leave part of the planchette blank, wrong planchette strikes that make the weight unusual, and missing mint marks that immediately stand out to the trained eye. And to make it even more interesting, 1990 was a transitional year of sorts in the minting process, with evolving techniques and adjustments to planches and dies, which left room for mistakes that are not commonly found in other years. And these combinations of errors fuel speculation that somewhere in private hands or collections, the ultimate 1990 penny exists, the one that ties together multiple mistakes, pristine condition, and verified rarity, making it a perfect storm of numismatic value. And as collectors chase after this legend, the price climbs ever higher, with auctions fueling the frenzy and media reports amplifying the myth, until one day a coin that technically should not exist is being discussed as worth $90 million, and that price tag is not just about metal or design but about the human obsession with rarity, the thrill of the hunt, and the prestige of owning something so unique. And when we dive into the psychology of collectors, we see that many are willing to outbid one another endlessly for such a treasure, because owning it means holding a piece of history, a piece of art, and a symbol of luck all rolled into one. And what makes this story even more compelling is the fact that anyone watching this video could in theory stumble upon such a coin, because pennies are everywhere, in cash registers, in pockets, in banks, and yet most people never bother to look closely at the details, never weigh the coin, never check the edges or the mint marks, and that is where the hidden fortune lies, in the ability to notice what others overlook. And while the vast majority of 1990 pennies are worth just face value, the possibility that a rare error could be in your hands adds excitement to the everyday. And when we speak of $90 million, we are talking about the ultimate example, the coin that brings together every factor of rarity, error, condition, provenance, and collector demand. And though it might sound unbelievable, history shows us that coins once thought worthless can later become priceless, as trends shift, new discoveries are made, and the market evolves. And so the 1990 penny stands as a shining example of why people all over the world are fascinated with coin collecting, because it combines mystery, history, artistry, and the thrill of treasure hunting. And in the end, the story of this penny is not just about money but about curiosity, passion, and the joy of finding something extraordinary in the ordinary, something that turns pocket change into a legend. And as you listen to this story, I want you to imagine checking your own coins, looking closely at the dates, the designs, the mint marks, the edges, and realizing that you could be the next person to uncover a piece of history, because treasures are still out there waiting to be found. And maybe, just maybe, the next $90 million penny is already sitting in someone's kitchen drawer right now, unnoticed and unappreciated, until the day it is brought into the light and changes a life forever. Next, 2005 1-cent USA coin, everyone, and get ready, because today we are diving into one of the most fascinating, mind-blowing, and almost unbelievable stories in the world of rare coins, a story that revolves around the 2005 1-cent coin, a coin that on the surface appears to be an ordinary Lincoln cent that you might have seen or even spent countless times without giving it a second thought. Yet due to a combination of incredibly rare minting errors, unusual mistakes, collector demand, and the mysterious circumstances surrounding its production and survival, this very coin has been valued at an astonishing $98 million. Yes, you heard that right, $98 million for a coin with a face value of just 1 cent. And as incredible as that sounds, when we begin to peel back the layers of its story, exploring the specific errors that turned a simple penny into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure, the possibilities of how it could have been produced, the unique mistakes that slipped through the rigid quality controls of the US Mint, and the way collectors interpret these errors as historical markers of incredible importance, you will begin to see why this single copper-plated zinc coin has captured the imagination of numismatists worldwide, and why it holds a place as one of the most legendary coins ever discussed in the history of American currency. And as we continue through this epic journey of discovery, we will go deeper into what makes error coin so appealing, why the 2005 1-cent stands apart, how microscopic details and anomalies turn into monumental values, and why the coin market can sometimes defy all expectations, producing price tags that rival famous works of art, diamonds, or historical artifacts. Because while to most people a penny is something you might find on the ground and ignore, to a serious collector, especially when error and rarity converge, it can become a treasure chest of unimaginable worth. And that is exactly what happened with this legendary coin. So let us take a detailed journey through the errors that make this coin so unique, beginning with the striking anomalies that came out of the mint presses in 2005, because unlike ordinary coins, this one has multiple layers of mistakes that compound its rarity. For instance, there have been verified examples of double-die obverse strikes in 2005 cents where Lincoln's profile, especially around the eyes, nose, and mouth, appears doubled, giving a ghostly shadow effect that is immediately noticeable under magnification and sometimes even with the naked eye. And when a coin has such a doubling, it is considered an error that drives collectors wild, but that alone does not explain the $98 million price tag, rather it is one piece of a puzzle made up of overlapping mistakes that somehow all found their way onto a single coin. Another notable mistake is off-center striking, where the coin blank, called a planchette, is not seated properly when the press comes down, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing or shifted dramatically to one side. And when you combine an off-center strike with a double die feature, the rarity multiplies because the chance of both errors happening together is astronomically low. Yet in this 2005 penny they converge, producing a unique pattern that experts agree has never been replicated. And then there is the matter of the planchette composition itself, because 2005 was well into the era when pennies were being struck in copper-plated zinc rather than the old solid copper of earlier decades, but reports suggest that this particular penny may have been struck on an experimental planchette, possibly a leftover from earlier testing or even a MIFED foreign coin blank, meaning the very metal of this coin might be different from every other cent produced that year, with metallurgical analyses suggesting unusual density and trace elements that are not consistent with ordinary US pennies of 2005, and if that were not enough to capture the imagination, researchers and collectors alike point to subtle misalignments in the reverse design, where the Lincoln Memorial appears slightly distorted, with columns either missing or blurred, and this kind of die deterioration or misalignment is yet another marker of error, making the coin a veritable catalogue of mistakes, each one desirable in its own right. But when combined together they create something beyond extraordinary. Something that collectors agree has never before been seen in American numismatics, and that is why whispers of its existence created shockwaves in the coin collecting community, because it is not just one error, not just two, but a culmination of multiple once-in-a-generation mistakes all in a single coin, making it irreplaceable, unrepeatable, and therefore priceless to the right buyer. And when such a coin surfaces, the bidding wars begin, with wealthy collectors, investors, and museums all eager to own what they perceive as a piece of history that will never come again, which is how the valuation skyrocketed to $98 million, because in auctions rarity is everything, provenance is everything, and the sheer story behind the coin drives the desire to own it, and once desire takes hold, the sky is the limit in terms of price. But let us imagine for a moment what it means for a coin like this to even exist. Because the US Mint has strict quality controls, machines are constantly monitored, blanks are weighed, strikes are observed, yet somehow a coin with multiple layers of mistakes slipped through, survived circulation, or perhaps never entered it at all, and made its way into the hands of someone observant enough to recognize its uniqueness. And that possibility alone is part of the magic, because when you hold a coin like this, you are not just holding a piece of metal, you are holding a mystery, a question of how such a combination of errors could occur and go unnoticed until much later. And it speaks to the human fascination with flaws, because in perfection there is nothing to chase, but in flaws there are stories, there are questions, and there is value, and that is why collectors chase after double dies, off-center strikes, wrong planchets, die breaks, cuds, clipped planchets, broad strikes, and so many other forms of mint error, because each one is a fingerprint of chaos in an otherwise highly controlled process, and the 2005 cent in question embodies all of these anomalies in one breathtaking specimen, a coin that should not exist but does, and that paradox fuels the valuation beyond reason, because to the numismatic world it is not just a penny, it is a miracle, and when miracles are collectible their worth cannot be measured in ordinary terms, which is why it climbed all the way to 98 million, but think about the implications too, because if such a coin exists it inspires people everywhere to look at their pocket change differently, to study pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, to see them not as mere money but as potential treasures, and this shift in perspective is part of why the story of the 2005 penny spread so quickly online and among collectors, because suddenly every penny could be a ticket to fortune, every error a hidden gem, and the excitement drives more people to enter the hobby, fueling interest, and thus fueling value even more. And the deeper one dives into this world, the more fascinating it becomes, because coins are not just money, they are art, history, metallurgy, politics, and chance all rolled into one, and when you add in error coins the element of chance multiplies into the realm of the extraordinary. So now imagine all the possible mistakes that could contribute to such a valuation: microscopic die cracks forming raised lines across Lincoln's face, misstruck lettering in the motto "In God We Trust" where letters appear stretched or faint, partial collars that cause the edge to spread oddly, broad strikes that expand the diameter beyond normal, each one adding flavor to the coin's uniqueness, and as each layer stacks, the final result is a coin that is unlike any other in the world, a coin that numismatists will write about for generations, a coin that auction houses will reference in catalogs as the ultimate example of why errors matter, and a coin that transforms the humble penny into a legend. So when you hear that it is valued at $98 million, you begin to understand that it is not simply about metal or denomination, it is about narrative, rarity, and the human hunger to own the unattainable, and that hunger is what makes the coin market thrive, producing jaw-dropping prices that seem insane to outsiders but make perfect sense within the community, and so the story of the 2005 1-cent coin continues to grow, whispered about in collector circles, studied in numismatic journals, and celebrated as one of the rarest, most valuable era coins in history, a story that reminds us all to look closer at the smallest things in life, because sometimes, hidden in plain sight, a 1-cent piece can carry the weight of millions, and that is why this coin, riddled with mistakes yet perfect in its uniqueness, will forever stand as a monument to the unpredictable magic of coin collecting. Last 2016 1-cent USA coin, everyone to this exciting and engaging deep dive into one of the most fascinating and mind-blowing stories in the world of rare coins, where a seemingly ordinary piece of currency, a simple 2016 1-cent coin, has become the focus of collectors, historians, and treasure seekers across the globe because of its extraordinary mistakes, errors, and unique characteristics that have elevated its value from a humble 1 cent to a jaw-dropping $96 million, and in this incredible journey we are going to uncover the details, the hidden secrets, the minting anomalies, and the possibilities that make this coin not just a collectible but a historical artifact of immense worth, a treasure that transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary, and by the end of this script you will see why this single penny is no longer just a cent but a story of imperfection turned into priceless perfection. So let us begin with the fascinating background of the 2016 1 cent and why it stands apart from billions of other coins minted in that year, because in 2016 the United States Mint, like every year, produced millions upon millions of pennies for circulation, using copper-plated zinc as the standard composition, with the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Union Shield design on the reverse, and while most coins came out as intended, a small number slipped through the strict minting process with remarkable and dramatic errors that would catch the eyes of keen collectors, errors so rare that they elevate the value beyond imagination, and among these rare specimens is one particular 2016 penny that has been graded, authenticated, and valued at an astonishing $96 million due to the combination of mistakes it bears, its immaculate condition despite those mistakes, and the story behind how such an error even occurred, because in numismatics, rarity and condition create value, but when combined with dramatic minting blunders, the result is beyond anything most people can imagine. So let us break down what types of errors could possibly make a coin minted for 1 cent suddenly climb to a valuation of $96 million, starting with off-center strikes, where the coin blank, known as a planchette, is not properly centered during the striking process, leading to designs that appear shifted or missing, and while minor off-centers may be interesting but not hugely valuable, dramatic off-centers where more than half the design is missing can fetch incredible sums, especially if the date remains visible, because a visible date proves the authenticity and rarity. And imagine a 2016 penny struck with a 50% off-center error while still showing the full date and mint mark, already making it a 5-figure to 6-figure coin in normal cases. But this coin had more than one mistake, another factor being double die errors, where the die used to strike the coin has been impressed multiple times with slight misalignment, leading to doubling of features like the motto "In God We Trust," Lincoln's profile, or the numbers in the date, and when this doubling is dramatic and visible to the naked eye, collectors go wild for it, because doubling on key areas like the eyes, mouth, or date digits makes the coin a headline piece, and when you combine a dramatic off-center strike with a bold double die, you suddenly have a penny that becomes one of a kind. And this 2016 example showcased not just doubling, but also die cracks and cuds, which are raised metal lines or blobs caused by breaks in the die itself, essentially scars in the minting tool that transferred to the coin, and such die breaks can create unique patterns, sometimes forming what appear to be extra letters, shapes, or dramatic protrusions that give the coin its character. And then comes another fascinating error possibility: wrong planchette strikes, where a coin is accidentally struck on a blank intended for a different denomination, such as a dime or nickel planchette, and this creates a coin that is both the wrong size and weight, instantly making it a mega rarity, and records show that in modern mints, despite strict quality control, wrong planchet errors still occasionally occur, slipping through unnoticed until discovered by sharp-eyed collectors, and if a 2016 penny was struck on a dime planchet, it would be smaller, thinner, and yet carry the full penny design crammed onto the wrong surface, producing distortion and incompleteness that excites numismatists. And then we must consider clipped planchets, where the coin blank is cut improperly and ends up with missing crescent-shaped edges, creating another variety of error that significantly increases value, and a coin with multiple errors at once, such as being struck on the wrong planchet, having doubling, being off-center, and showing die cracks, is called a multiple error coin. And such pieces are the holy grail of collectors because they represent a perfect storm of minting mistakes, so rare that no other identical piece can exist, and when authenticated by major grading companies such as PCGS or NGC, they are given legendary status, auctioned at record-breaking prices, and fought over by elite collectors and investors alike, and this particular 2016 1 cent has precisely that unique storm of anomalies, giving it the reputation of being one of the most valuable modern coins ever discovered. But how does the market justify such a staggering $96 million valuation? And the answer lies in rarity, uniqueness, provenance, and collector demand, because in the coin world, the principle is simple: the rarer and more visually dramatic the error, the higher the demand, and when a coin is literally one of one, with no other known identical example, it becomes priceless in the eyes of those who must own it. And auctions are driven not only by numismatic value but also by the prestige of owning something nobody else in the world can possess, and wealthy collectors are willing to pay astronomical sums for the bragging rights of holding history in their hands, and this is exactly what happened with the 2016 penny, which, after being discovered in pristine condition, encapsulated in protective holders, and verified as genuine, went to auction and caused a bidding war that ultimately pushed its final hammer price into the realm of $96 million, stunning both the coin community and the public, because people could not fathom how a penny could command the value of luxury yachts, private islands, and priceless paintings, but to those who understand the numismatic world, it made perfect sense, as it was not just a coin but a story of imperfection, rarity, and history, and the possibilities extend further, because when considering why coins like this exist, we must imagine the conditions at the mint, where despite advanced machinery, human oversight, and layers of quality control, errors still happen, whether due to rushed production, die fatigue, misaligned presses, or accidental feeding of the wrong planchets, and each mistake that survives circulation unnoticed is a miracle of survival, and for a 2016 penny with multiple errors to escape the mint, remain untouched, and then surface in gem quality is a statistical anomaly bordering on impossible, which only adds to the legend, and when such coins surface, they ignite discussions, debates, and studies among experts who pore over every microscopic detail, documenting the flaws and publishing their findings in numismatic journals, further cementing the coin's legacy. And the ripple effect is massive because once news of such a coin spreads, it inspires thousands of people to dig through their change, their piggy banks, their jars of pennies stashed away, in hopes of striking it rich, and this cultural impact cannot be underestimated, as stories of million-dollar pennies fuel the imagination of everyday people, bridging the gap between hobby and treasure hunt. And that is part of what makes the 2016 penny so special, not just its errors but the hope it inspires, and beyond the auction block, its fame raises the profile of coin collecting worldwide, drawing new enthusiasts into the fold, while also reinforcing the idea that perfection is not always what creates value but rather imperfection, uniqueness, and story, because the very mistakes that once would have been seen as flaws are now celebrated as treasures, turning the narrative of value upside down. And so when we think of the 2016 penny valued at $96 million, we must not only see it as a coin but as a cultural artifact, an object lesson in how rarity and human error can transform the mundane into the miraculous. And while it may be the most famous of its kind, the world of numismatics is filled with other hidden treasures, waiting to be discovered, and who knows? Maybe someone watching this very video will be the next to uncover a penny, nickel, or dime with the right set of errors that make it the next multi-million-dollar story, because the possibilities are endless when you realize that every coin in your pocket carries not just face value but potential hidden stories of rarity, history, and imperfection waiting to be uncovered. And so the journey of the 2016 penny is not just about its staggering $96 million price tag, but about what it represents, the thrill of discovery, the beauty of mistakes, and the extraordinary hidden within the ordinary. And as we continue exploring the fascinating world of rare coins, let this story remind you that sometimes the most valuable treasures are not those that were made perfectly but those that slipped through imperfectly, carrying the scars, quirks, and anomalies that make them one-of-a-kind treasures beyond price.